All right, cool. And we're live. All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you guys all so much for stopping by. As always, I'm Eli with Pokémon USA, and this is Alex with Nomics. Yeah, Nostalgianomics. um, and today's topic, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna have a discussion about all things Pokemon singles, but specifically alternate arts. I feel like we're usually one to talk about sealed product, but we're going to switch it up a little bit and kind of take a look at what's going on in the singles market. But before we jump into it, as always, make sure you leave a like, comment down below, subscribe to the YouTube channel. It helps out the algorithm. And anything you want to say before we get started, good sir?
Yeah, I mean, I like, obviously I like sealed product for long-term investment purposes over singles, but I think singles, there's a lot better timing plays you can make on the market. And I know a lot of people are kind of against the whole timing the market versus time in the market, but when it comes to singles in this hobby, you can definitely make some good timing plays if you know what you're looking for. So I think that's what this video is going to be based on.
So how about we have you start things off this time as well, because you obviously posted a video today kind of talking a little bit about what we're going to be discussing and kind of give your general synopsis of what's been going on specifically with some of the alt arts in the Sword and Shield generation.
Yeah, I mean, I think, what's happened obviously with the Sword and Shield booster boxes, some selling out at Pokemon Center and, rising in price like pretty rapidly. A lot of the alt arts were being kind of left behind and they were still kind of stagnant, trending down, moving sideways. And I think a lot of people just weren't noticing it. And now they are starting to catch up to the booster boxes and they're all starting to kind of go parabolic as well. And I think it was pretty easy to see that because, looking back at all these different XY, Sun and Moon, Sword and Shield sets, you can kind of see how the top hits in the sets, they usually perform pretty stable compared to the booster boxes. Like as the booster boxes move up, a lot of these top hits values move up with them. And, and that's kind of what happened back when Sun and Moon and the waifus and all those went crazy with the Sun and Moon boxes and tag team boxes. And so, what we're going through now in Sun and Moon is we're seeing kind of a deflation from all of those crazy spikes. And some people could say, oh, well, now they're being properly valued. But you could also say, well, now is a great buying opportunity if you still believe in these things for the long term, because as we know, the boxes are still moving up. So we see all the Sun and Moon boxes either being stable or continuing to move up as well. But a lot of the alt art cards fell back down. So to me, it looks like it could be a lot of opportunity here.
Well, and that's another interesting thing to kind of look at as well is there are certain cards that are just still plummeting, and some of them, at least in the short-term chart that we're looking at within a yearly, they are kind of starting to find their bottom potentially. I mean, I feel like a good example of that is if you look at the Gardevoir and the Sylveon, it looks like at least for the past month now, it's kind of gone sideways in price after it went from its all-time high at 240, and it's now sitting at roughly around 175. So it still did a massive retracement, but obviously since then it's kind of, stabilized. But then if you look at some of the other cards like the Pheromosa and the Buzzwole alternate arts, you saw its all-time high at $45 and it's currently still trending downwards at around $33, $34, which it doesn't sound like a huge dip at $10, but like from a percentage perspective, like dropping almost, 30% is still quite a bit of a dip. And now some people might be like, well, that's, not a super popular Pokemon card in terms of the alternate art picks. Well, another one I feel like is a really good look is going to be the Mega Sableye and the Tyranitar. I think that one, if you go take a look at the price on that, it has been nothing but a sharp decline. I mean, I'm talking highs back in July of 175, and we're talking now down to 120. So the retracement on that is, I mean, that's more than a 30% retracement just off the yearly. If we're going off of just, from the previous year of going in April, the high was 111. And so the fact that we're 10 minutes away from where we were a year ago, or 10 minutes away, $10 away from where we were a year ago, I think that kind of shows you that there is still a lot of price action to go with some of these Sun and Moon Air cards. And who knows if the ones that are currently going sideways are going to kind of stabilize or if they're going to eventually follow suit with some of the other ones.
Yeah, and it's so hard because obviously us as humans, us as being into the financial side of this, we always want to make these like comparisons between every era, every set. It's so hard because if you look back at like XY, right, the cards are very easy to hit. I mean, you open a case of every set, you're basically going to have the whole set. But because they were lower printed, because they're a lot worse quality, they're much harder to get in high grades. And so the higher grades still hold a lot of value, even though the raw singles aren't as valuable. And then you get the Sun and Moon, and Sun and Moon's kind of like an in-between. Like they're a lot harder to hit than XY was. Not quite as hard to hit as Sword and Shield alt arts are. But so like they're holding a lot of value in singles, and they also have some pretty good multiples in the graded. So there's both chases there. And then Sword and Shield, it's just the cards are so hard to freaking pull and find near mint that the raw values are just so high, as well as the grading plays, but they're not as high as multiples. So when you come to Sun and Moon, it's just like as these cards continue to get harder to find near mint, the raw singles are even going to start rising because people want to make that grading play because there's a multiple there. And so I like where Sun and Moon is. It's not as easy as XY. It's not as crazy hard as Sword and Shield. So a lot of people are still going to want to open these boxes because the hits they're not like as out of reach as alt arts are. I mean, if you open a Sword and Shield box, you're almost guaranteed not to pull an alt art at this point, or especially the one you want. But with Sun and Moon, you have a lot better chance of pulling these. So I think that will help a lot with the boxes being open, rising those prices, and rising the singles back up as well.
Well, speaking of, like you said, with graded plays and just, plays in general with singles, it's interesting to see because you have seen a absolute rush of hype go into, and we've already talked about this. We talked about this in the previous videos with the Sword and Shield era booster box prices going up and sealed product going up in general, right? And with that, you've obviously seen what looks to be a kind of correlation with that also happening within a lot of the singles for the older Sword and Shield era alternate art sets. With that being said, like we kind of already touched on a little bit, you're seeing the price of Sun and Moon boosters go up, but the singles are obviously, or at least the alternate art singles, are going down. So you have these like kind of contrast movements happening within each generation. So, we obviously know that this is on the back half of a huge bubble, more or less, that is being popped, or a retracement, whatever you kind of want to look at it. But let's not forget too, Sword and Shield era alternate arts were also going up during the time of Sun and Moon. And it looks like they were going to kind of like retrace a little bit, but now they're going back up again. So it's kind of hard because you want to like kind of almost compare the two because there are, alternate art designs, but ultimately they're almost in their own kind of like sphere of different trading patterns or like price movements. I don't know if you would agree with that.
No, for sure. I mean, here's the cool part too, is a lot of the time, now not all the time, you can definitely go find cards that actually retrace all the way down to their old, I guess lows, you can call them, their old highs a year ago or whatever. But a lot of the times when things retrace, no matter if it's 30, 40, 50%, whatever it is, they usually find new bottoms a little bit ahead of where they were previous to the pump. And that's kind of what we're seeing with a lot of these cards, which tells you, well, okay, it's already retraced a good amount. It's a little bit higher than it was, but not crazy amount higher. It's starting to go sideways. Like those are usually times to pick things up. Not saying everything's going to be a pickup, but especially when you see things like, I mean, looking at the Gengar Mimikyu GX alt art, it's like extremely popular Pokemon. The second best hit next to the Latios and Team Up. It was highs in the 350s. It's down in the 230s now near mint. A year ago it was only 211, so it's almost back down to its old where it was a year ago, but it's a little above it, starting to go sideways. I mean, those are the kind of things you want to look for in these cards where they just scream pickup to me.
Yeah, I mean, the only one at least I'm seeing that's held like a ton of strength, it's the Latios and Latios card. Like that one's kind of gone sideways more than anything. I mean, maybe a slight drop, but I mean, other than that, like it's been performing extremely strong. But yeah, it's funny you're looking at the Gengar Mimikyu one. That's literally what I was staring at too. So I mean, the Magikarp and Wailord hasn't been performing the worst. I think it's only had like a 15% drop, but I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's it's interesting. I think it's easy to say too that a lot of the cards, I mean, within Team Up, we should say more in particular, they've kind of held a lot more of their strength because of the general scarcity of just the sealed product, since it never did get that second reprint in the same way like Unbroken Bonds, Unified Minds did, and Cosmic Eclipse obviously getting a lot of the single packs being thrown into product. So you can kind of see that, hey, of all the sets, which one's holding up the best? And I think honestly that almost makes an even more compelling of an argument for the Gengar Mimikyu card, because if you're seeing a lot of the cards within Team Up holding strong for that reason compared to the rest of the alternate arts and the other sets, there's definitely an argument to be making that it's extremely, extremely undervalued compared to its counterparts, especially since we know how, Gengar and Mimikyu are such valuable, sought after characters.
Yeah. I mean, the scarcity is definitely playing a factor. You can definitely tell some of the other sets, some of the other cards are definitely seeing some worse pullbacks and less holding and things like that. But I mean, even like Cosmic Eclipse, the Blastoise Piplups pulled back a lot. You have the Arceus, Alga, Palkia, the big stone sculpture card that's had a huge pullback. But again, all of these seem like they're going sideways, and they're all settling, I don't know, maybe 10 to 20%, sometimes 30% higher than where they were a year ago before the pump. And so that's good to see. I mean, that's good to see. It seems like people have all kind of figured out a price range where people are no longer want to sell below. People are still buying at those prices. And those are the times when it's never good to try to catch a falling knife, but after the knife has fallen and things start stabilizing, those are usually good times to buy if that's something you were looking to pick up.
Yeah. Is there any specific cards that you kind of want to point out in the Sword and Shield era that you like in particular, that you're looking at compared to like what's been popping off?
Yeah, I mean the Gengar, but that just popped off.
You've been talking about the Gengar for a while, it feels like.
Yeah, that Gengar just, again, it could be because I'm a Gen 1 guy. I'm not a Gen, whatever Giratina's from, Gen 4, Gen 5. But I've always thought it's crazy that Giratina was above Gengar. I mean, Gengar is now pushing the envelope where they're getting pretty close now in a 10. I think the Raws are getting even close now. But I mean, I could see that being like a a race between those two. Other ones I'm thinking about, like someone like maybe the Evolving Skies evolutions, not like just the Moonbryon, but a lot of the ones like maybe 4, 5, 6, 7 hits deep. That I could see that they're starting to see movement, but I think those have kind of been overshadowed by some of the big hits. That I actually like those plays. And then I'm a fan of any of the top hits and sets. I've done research on it, and usually a lot of the top hits, like the top chase, the reason you open that booster box, those have done relatively well. And so like, the Tyranitar from Battle Styles, the Machamp from Astral Radiance, any of the top hits and sets, I'm okay picking up, and I feel confident those are going to hold up well as long as the booster boxes keep rising.
What is your overall thoughts? And we've touched on this a little bit when comparing booster boxes, obviously, but with the kind of thought process that we've had regarding Battle Styles, do you feel confident in some of the other top hits outside of the Tyranitar performing well when it comes to the alternate arts? Like if someone like hypothetically wants to pick up one of the Urshifus or maybe even the Empoleon.
I mean, so for me, that's not what I would go for, just because, again, this could be my bias, right? It's just, I just don't know how much of a following those Pokemon have. Now, if we're talking about going to like other sets that have strong Pokemon that are like a little lower, like maybe going to like the Celebi from Fusion Strike, that's something I think it's Fusion Strike. Like that's a Pokemon I feel like can do well, even though it's a lower value. Like, but going for Pokemon that I don't feel are sought after, I'm just not sure how those are going to do.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the Tyranitar, it's still going down in value. Like at its highest point, it looks like it was around 115 and it's now into the 90s, which I remember it being around the 90s back when the set had its reprint. I think at the lowest point, it was like in the like high 60s, low 70s. So it feels like it's not really done much other than just kind of stabilize around that $90 price point. So I think there's definitely an argument to be made there on it being a great value, especially because it is a more sought after character, like you were saying. And It's funny you mentioned the Celebi. I mean, I've been talking about the Celebi forever. I think the Celebi is so stupid cheap right now, being in the 20s. I still don't understand why it's that cheap personally.
I mean, even like Chilling Reign with like, the Altarts, Zapdos and Articuno, it's like, well, yeah, the Moltres is getting the love. It's the second hit in the set, but it's like a lot of people, they're like sort of completionists, and they'll probably want both of the other two legendary bird Altarts. So like those could pop up a little bit in the future. So like I just try to like kind of like not really think outside the box, but kind of think in terms of like why someone would want to pick up these cards down the road. And I like to stick with Pokemon that people know and like. I like to stick with, cards that are already sought after, are already hard to pull. Like, and a lot of times it's worked out well. Sometimes it doesn't. And you know how this game is. As long as you're right about 70-80% of the time, you're probably doing okay.
Okay, so now here's a really important question we have to ask. Not really. So we've been touching on alternate arts and going back and looking at Sun and Moon and Sword and Shield era, which is weird to say going back because it's not that old. But let's go back farther, right? Let's take a look, and we've once again touched on this briefly, but XY era, previous era, we know we're going to be getting a new game that's going to focus around the generation of XY. My hype for what I think the megas are going to do. But with that being said, what is your kind of overall take on just specific cards or all the cards or just the XY era and what it potentially could lead to with a lot of the single prices?
Oh yeah, it's definitely going to help them. Here's the weird thing though, right? Is especially when you look at like base set, when you look at like Flashfire, a lot of those, the full arts, they're not megas, right? They're regular full art EXs. So it's like, in some of these sets where like they're not megas, will like other megas like pop up and start outperforming the other cards just because people are on like this mega spree? Will it just draw people back to XY and they'll still go after the top hits and the top chases anyway? It is going to be interesting how that all like gets affected. Like just like think of like the Silver Dialga, like only silver card. It's the top hit in Phantom Forces, and then like the full art Gengar. It's just a full art. It's not a mega Gengar. It's not a anything like that. And so that's one thing I can't figure out. I've been trying to think about. Is it just going to be all directed to any mega with the Japanese writing going over them? Or is it going to bring in just tension back to XY because of the megas, and then all those other cards that are top hits are going to pump as well? I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I personally think that you're going to see just a general resurgence within XY, but it wouldn't surprise me if it's more geared towards the megas. Like, I think it'll be twofold. I think you'll see everything rise, but megas are specifically going to be targeted. It's kind of like what we saw with Diamond and Pearl era, where like you saw insane value pop-ups for like some of the secret rare Pokemon that were like golds or like shinies or like just sought after hollows. Like the values of those popped off. But in terms of like percentage gain, by far, like a lot of the level X cards were popping off in value like crazy. And this was because of obviously Legends Arceus and then Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl coming out. So it drove a lot of hype for that. So for me, like, I don't think it's definitely bad to say at all that, you could be picking up certain full art cards, certain EX cards, but, I would not be surprised if you have a lot of people that are like, hey man, they're coming out with these new mega Pokemon. It'd be cool to go back and pick up some of the older mega Pokemon, which is like a Primal Kyogre or a Primal Groudon or like a mega, Gardevoir or Aggron. Because if you really think about it, like, the most expensive card, if we're just looking at, like, I'm looking at it right now, Primal Clash, the most expensive card we're seeing is the Omega Primal Groudon, which I'm looking at it, and the lowest listed is selling for about $70.
That's why I love XY. It's like, if you're a grader, there's grading plays because the grading is exponential when you hit tens. Like it brings $50 cards to like $600 cards. But at the same time, if you're used to collecting Sword and Shield and Sun and Moon, and you're used to paying $200, $300, $400 for your top hits, you can literally get these sets top hits. Like go and look at like Breakthrough. You can get the top Mewtwo's for $30 to $50. You know, the Alakazam, it's like $30, $40 in Fates Collide or the Flora Umbreon. Like, that's what's so cool about XY is like, if you're just a card collector or you go after just the singles, you're not about the grading, you don't mind if there's a couple white nicks or a little off center or whatever, you can pick these cards up so cheap compared to other eras' top hits.
Well, it's funny too, because like I mentioned the Primal Groudon being obviously like $70. But if you look at the prices for the other cards following up with that, it's like the Kyogre is selling for 43. And then you've got just the standard EX version selling for the low 30s. And then now going to the megas of the next Pokemon, the Gardevoir and the Aggron, those are selling for sub $20. Like, these cards are all still ridiculously cheap to pick up within this set, and then obviously the sets that you mentioned in particular. So regardless of whether you're a fan of the art design, because there's obviously, you know, some sentiment behind the XY era, I think a lot of things to consider as well was it was a extremely heavily printed set, and then most importantly, the reason why we're even having this conversation is the fact that nostalgia will allow things to mature and gain in value over time. So ultimately, at the end of the day, it's still going to be a play that is going to more than likely occur with the nostalgic value that we're going to get with the upcoming arc or the upcoming legend set Z through A.
And kind of, you know, piggybacking on what you said before is how other eras have given us something, right? Like Sun and Moon gave us rainbows and they gave us alt arts, and now like Sword and Shield gave us like I guess they gave us alt arts again, but like XY, you know, although it didn't like make any kind of crazy card moves, you know, those megas, those are, you know, kind of unique to XY. Like they're the mega evolutions with the Japanese writing going over across the cards, where, like it or not, I'm not telling you to like it, I'm just saying it is something different. It is something unique to that era.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, I've said this before, objectively speaking, although Diamond and Pearl era is my favorite era, hands down, my favorite, objectively, I would argue that it is probably one of the worst, if not the worst, generation when it comes to like car designs. Like, if you look at just the first half of like the Diamond and Pearl era, it's pretty freaking bad. Like, going from the back half of the EX era, where you have the Gold Star cards and you have the EX card designs, and then the next generation just comes out with, instead of you getting EX cards, you get level X's. Like, that's not unique. Like, you're just changing the overall like two like letters. Like, you're like, all right, instead of EX, it's level X, and you're like, what's different? The art's slightly different, and I'm like, that doesn't feel special, right? But of course, for me, being nostalgic with that entire generation and a huge fan of a lot of the Gen 4 Pokemon, it's hard for me not to kind of fall in love with it. Because, I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, like, there are sure hollows within the set that are cool to like chase after if you are a fan of a lot of the hollow designs. But from a uniqueness and an art rarity perspective, you didn't really get most of that till the back half within like the Platinum era series. And even that, like, arguably, it's still not that crazy. Like, you had shiny Pokemon that were like reverse hollows, but like shiny Pokemon as reverse hollows are still not as sick as Gold Star cards. Like, Gold Star cards are night and day, way cooler than just a slap a shiny Pokemon and just change its color. Like, there's just no uniqueness to that. And I guess, you know, once again, the point of me making this and crapping on the Diamond and Pearl era is, once again, this was the era that popped off the most when it came to the nostalgic hit that a lot of people got with the remakes of the game. So, I mean, I remember when you saw some of these just standard level X's selling for like as low as like $5 to $10. Now some of them selling for upwards of $100 to $200. Like, it's insane to see. And like, don't get me wrong, like some of them popped off during just COVID in general, but you saw their biggest price gain by far once the remakes happened. Some of the PSA 10 cards, like before COVID, were averaging around $50 to $100. Then during COVID, they went up to 500. Then a lot of them started to break 1,000 after you saw the remake. So that's like a huge gain to see that much of like price movement for these cards.
Yeah, man. I mean, you can even see in the chat, like, there's people really hating on megas. I mean, XY has notoriously been hated on. It's really similar to Scarlet and Violet. Like, Scarlet and Violet gets about the same amount of hate as XY gets. And here's the thing, guys, I don't care. Like, look, this is our topic today. Like, I'm not neither me or Eli are trying to pump like XY or anything. We're just giving perspectives on what could happen. Like, you don't have to like everything you put money into because you see moves, but this is a very real thing that could happen when this new era, this game and everything gets released. Is you could see these prices move because of that. And that's kind of how investing is. Like, you don't have to like everything you invest in, but if you see possibilities there, it can always make sense to make a play on it. But
Yeah,
it means by telling you to like megas or go collect XY because I like it. It's nothing to do with that. It's just, it'd be irresponsible to not talk about the correlation that we can see right now.
No, 1000%. I'm not. I mean, and I've talked about it many a times. My disdain for just the XY era in general. Like, XY era was one of the eras that literally got me to leave the hobby. So it's not like I'm this huge fan of like XY that's trying to say, yeah, man, I love the mega art design. It's like, no, I am here talking about it from solely an investment perspective. If you like the art designs, if you don't, doesn't really matter to me. At the end of the day, we've seen correlations happen in other eras, like my favorite, which obviously was known as the terrible era when it came to art designs, and it still popped off like crazy. So for me, I'm just saying, hey man, like, regardless of whether you like the art designs or not, it's hard not to deny as an investor the potential correlation that could occur when we do get the new Legends game, and how you could be missing out on a massive opportunity. Obviously not financial advice, but this is why we're talking about this from a hypothetical and looking at what has happened historically speaking.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, man, why don't we we forgot to talk about it earlier. Astral Radiance out of stock. It has beaten, it beat Lost Origin and what's the other one? Brilliant Stars from being out of stock first on the Pokemon Center out of those three. It kind of blows my mind because Astral Radiance market price right now is basically what MSRP is. It's not higher like Brilliant Stars and Lost Origin is. So, but we've always known, though. Everyone's always known Astral Radiance did get shorter printed than all the other alt art sets. So it kind of makes sense to me. What do you think about it?
Well, it's interesting because for me, it's like, so Brilliant Stars got a pretty decent sized print off of its initial rip, and Astral had, at least this is just based on my allocation numbers that I got, Astral was like one of the first sets that got like a decrease from the previous set in terms of allocation numbers. And this is just per my distributors, right? And yes, we did get a reprint for both Astral and Brilliant, very tiny reprint back in May of last year. But with that being said, like Alex was saying, there wasn't a huge amount initially out the gate. So you can kind of see that happen. I guess I'm more surprised because even though Brilliant obviously has more supply, the demand has been super high out the gate for Brilliant. If you remember, Brilliant prices at release were $180 a box. Like, they were going crazy in price out the gate, right? And then after it finally got a like second wave come out with Brilliant, you saw the prices kind of go down to like 130-ish, and then you saw it go all the way up to $200, and now it corrected again. So it's definitely weird for me to see Astral not like how do I want to say this? Like, when it got its print, it didn't go down nearly as much as Brilliant did, but it hasn't shown a ton of highwards like volatility, like upwards volatility. So it's a weird one for me because I'm like, people haven't really liked this set a ton. It hasn't gone down a ton. It hasn't gone up a ton, but it's gone out of stock on the center before some of the other more volatile sets have. I don't know. It's kind of a weird one for me to look at and kind of give a accurate take on. Other than that,
Only thing I can come up with is scarcity. It just there wasn't as much of it, and I just think all the alt art sets are kind of getting a good amount of demand. Even Battle Styles is selling. Someone was sharing some data on that and on my Discord, and even Battle Styles is starting to like have like an increased amount of sales and moving up ever so slightly. So I think all the alt art sets are just getting bought, and Astral just didn't have much supply left and got bought out.
Yeah, guess so, man. Guess so.
I mean, I definitely don't think it's like I'm not telling one to like go FOMO into it. It's going to like pump to $200. I mean, I think if Brilliant Stars or Lost Origin go out of stock, I could see those pumping to 200 pretty quickly, like Chilling Reign and Fusion Strike did. But Astral, I don't know if I really see like a crazy pump to the moon right away. It'll probably, trend up a little bit because of that news. But I wouldn't be surprised to see it like kind of find its footing in maybe the 160s, 170s, maybe.
I guess you also have to ask yourself the question, how much stock do you put in how much stock do you put in Pokemon Center supply running out? Like, does that immediately put your mind of like, oh my God, it's out of stock, things are going to the moon? Like, how do you kind of read into that?
So it's kind of a perfect correlation is if anyone's like, into technical analysis with like day trading or anything, right? A lot of people want to like discredit like like chart patterns, right? The reason chart patterns work is because enough people believe they work and enough people trade those stocks based off chart patterns. And so it kind of is like a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's how I correlate Pokemon Center. It shouldn't mean anything, right? But enough people believe it means something and enough people put their money to work in the market based off that information. And so it kind of becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Sellers kind of start pulling product back and holding it because they believe it's going to go higher. People start to FOMO into it because they're freaked out. It got sold on Pokemon Center. The news starts getting everywhere. So they'll start buying more. So there's an increase in sales. There's a decrease in supply because people are starting to hold it and raise their prices. And it just becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So it's not that I think it means a lot. The market tells me it always means a lot. And so for that reason, yeah, I guess it's pretty meaningful.
Yeah. Oh man, it's a hard one for me because I guess what I put personally, and this is just me, what I put the most stock in is what's going on at distributors. That's what I care about the most. Sure, I think that there is an argument to be made that there is, to some extent, a correlation, but I think it's more of like a trickle-down effect of it all, right? And it's more or less like a momentum rolling. It goes, distributors start to run out of supply, then general retailers start to run out of supply or raise their prices, and then as prices get raised on the secondary market, people go to Pokemon Center, and then Pokemon Center runs out, and now it goes back to the secondary market, and that kind of volatility goes up. So there's definitely some value within it to say like there is in fact a correlation, but ultimately I think that really just comes to a start at what's going on with available product at distribution, because we talked about it last time. There's just so much of it that is no longer available within the past month of Sword and Shield Air product. Like, it's just been starting to get cleaned out. I think at this point, Silver Tempest is like, that's kind of it. Silver Tempest DTB, Silver Tempest sleeved blisters, like that's available. Like that's kind of it. Lost Origin just went out of stock, both build and battle stadiums as well as the sleeved, and same goes with the Brilliant Stars. I mean, Brilliant Stars build and battle stadiums were in stock forever and they just sold out of those too. So if you're a fan of wanting to pick it up obviously on distro, or if you're part of the wholesale program, which, I guess I'll mention that while we're here, we have a program we run where you can get access to Pokemon, Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, Flesh and Blood, and so much more at wholesale pricing. If that's something you're interested in, you can always feel free to message me, join the Discord down below, and then message me directly there, or just at me. And we have the link to join down below in the description too. But that's kind of one of the plays we took a ton of value in within the past like 3 to 4 months, was everyone just buying a ton of Sword and Shield Air product as much as they can and what's available. So those plays are now starting to dry up. So it'll be interesting to see what the evolution is going to look like with that, with Astral, and who knows what's going to pop off next in terms of Pokemon Center running out of stock with other boosters that are in the Sword and Shield era.
And not to pump Scarlet and Violet.
There's the transition.
It's not transition, but as Eli's saying, all that money is being poured into Sword and Shield. There will come a time when Sword and Shield boxes get too expensive. People are kind of done with it, and they have their positions. They don't want to buy more. All of that spending power, it's not just going to go away, right? It's not just going to disappear. We could see drastic increases in Scarlet Violet product very quickly because if all that spending power all shifts at one point and buys out supply very quickly, you could just, I'm not trying to pump anything, but you could see things move very quickly if you're not in them. So just, it's something to think about. But same thing goes to like the lower sets. Like you could see battle styles go from 115 to 150. And it doesn't mean it's a buyout, it doesn't mean it's market manipulation. It's just, it's kind of the flow of money. When things become expensive, like imagine if Lost Origin and Brilliant Stars went out of stock, right? And all of those boxes, along with Chilling Reign, Fusion Strike, everything is $200 to $250, right? A lot of money will pour into Silver Tempest and Battle Styles and things like that because it's just how the money flows. People want to get in on things before they move. They see everything else moving. These things haven't. They start moving their money around. And so just pay attention to that. As all these other sets start to sell out and rise, just kind of look for other opportunities where people's money, because all this market is, it's not about, what you like or this card or that set. It's about understanding human behavior and where that money is going to flow and trying to predicting that. That's all this is.
Well, also too, from like a secondary market perspective, when it comes to negotiating, I think you mentioned this, or I can't remember if someone else did as well, but if you're going and wanting to like pick up Brilliant Stars booster boxes, if someone like looks at market price and is like, oh, it's 170, I'll sell it to you for like 150. You can always go to Pokemon Center website and say, hey, I can go buy it here for 144. So it's like, it's a huge like leverage tactic for a lot of people to use to still try and negotiate prices lower just based off of what's selling on Pokemon Center website. Whether it works or not, once that kind of goes away, it does, I feel like, take a lot of leverage out of some sellers' position to try and sell on a competitive market, considering it won't be available for people to pick up at that price point, and market price will be what's left.
Yeah. But no, I mean, back to the original discussion though. I mean, like, talking about that money flow in other places, like if more people continue to start seeing that a lot of these, Sun and Moon tag team cards have really deflated and they're starting to stabilize, money might flow to those. And like, that could be a play, as the new game and all that comes out, the money might flow to the XY megas. Like, the money's going to go somewhere. Like it's very rare that people just stop spending money, especially on hobbies like this. Obviously there's always individual circumstances, life circumstances, need money for other things, but the money as a whole is normally going to go somewhere. It doesn't just stop getting spent. And so, just kind of pay attention to all those things because there could be plays to be had.
Here's an interesting point. At least I'm reading some of the comments that people are discussing. Do you think it's a possibility that it could be temporarily out of stock? Because someone had mentioned like Paradox Rift boosters is technically out of stock right now. So is that something you play at all into your, thought process?
I don't think so, but I mean, I don't know. I don't have any insider information. Like in my experience, like when sets are old like that and they go out of stock, usually it's the end. Like the newer stuff, like the PC ETBs, they'll go out of stock. And then when it's released, the set's released, they'll come back in stock, or stuff will go in and out of stock when they're like newer in the first year, 2 years. But I mean, Astral Radiance, what is that now? Like almost 4 years old at this point?
Astral came out in 2022. So it's about to be 2 years in May.
So not that old.
No, yeah, it came out in May 2022, if I'm correct. Yeah, because Brilliant came out in, was it January that it came out? And then Astral came out in May, and then Pokemon Go came out in July. So it was like one of those sets that was kind of weird because it had a pretty big gap between the time. Oh no, that's a lie actually.
You're right.
February. Brilliant Stars came out in February, not January.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I'm looking at it. You're right.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I think it's probably out of stock, but there's always that speculation. I mean, that's just how I feel. Like, and I don't have like a massive position. I have some, but it'd be much better for me if other sets went up in value than Astral Radiance. So like, I have no reason to like pump it or make false statements or try to like get people to believe things. It's just my personal opinion. I think it's probably really out of stock, but anything could happen.
I may or may not have, I'm not 100% certain, but I may or may not have a case of Lost Origin, or not Lost Origin, sorry. Definitely have more than a case of that. Astral Radiance. I know for a fact I've got like 2 or 3 boosters, but yeah, I mean, when it came to the reprint, the only thing I was targeting was Brilliance when we got that tiny reprint, because I was like, yeah, Brilliance going to be the play.
Yeah, because like you said, Brilliant. I mean, it never really went under like the 1 teens on that reprint. Like it never got back in the 90s. You know.
Oh, definitely not. No, literally, I mean, I think if I'm correct, when we had that like tiny reprint, Astro went down to 110 and Brilliant went down to like 130. So, I mean, I'll take that.
I mean, even on eBay, like I remember I made a video like sharing links into like the lowest sellers, and like it was in the 1 teens. Like even the eBay didn't have it lower than that. So, because I know TCG players usually a little higher, but you couldn't find it unless you had like insider sources or distribution or something like that for less than the 1 teens.
Yeah. No, 1000%. Yeah, I think it's definitely a set that's older. So I personally would say that with Paradox Rift, I don't put too much stock into it being
No.
stock, especially considering it's still available at distro for under what was the original listed wholesale price. So,
And considering it's not performing well, it's like 80s by the case, like $90 boxes. Like, I mean, maybe if like Paldea or something was trending up to like 130s, it would make almost a little more sense, but still not really. Like, there's just no way.
yeah, I don't know. But we're about 40 minutes in now. Do you guys want to start? Do you guys want to start having a conversation about some of the questions that we have in the comment section?
Well, you asked them, so I guess they could tell you.
That's a good point. Pokey Collector told me to check my Discord. I see a picture that I was sent about collect alert monitors that was sent earlier this morning. I want to say like 6 or 7 hours ago about an Astral Radiance restock happening, but it's still fully out of stock. So, I mean, odds are, I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm looking at the Pokemon Center website right now. Are you seeing Astral Radiance in stock? Because I'm not seeing it.
No. I will talk about young playmakers comments you just left. We get these all the time about the auxiliary products that are released with the booster boxes, and everyone's always in like mystified why the packs are nowhere close to the booster box price per pack. And guys, this is the normal flow of things. It's all except back in like XY and Sun and Moon when the ETBs were very short printed, they were never reprinted, and they had such short supply. It's just the way it is. The booster boxes are bought because of their scarcity and their collectability. They're not bought because of the pack price. So trying to go and look at pack prices and trying to figure out, well, the booster box seems overvalued or the ETB seems undervalued because of this. It's just not the way it works. Like the ETBs, especially in Sword and Shield, other than what, like the extra items, there's no promo card, right? There's some sleeves and some other stuff. They're basically valued a little bit more than what the packs are valued at. Whereas booster boxes, they're valued off of the item itself being sealed in mint condition, whatever it may be. And so, no, I don't think it's strange that Fusion Strike booster boxes are going crazy and the ETBs and packs aren't, or Evolving Skies, same thing. Now, I'm not saying that the ETBs and on either of those sets or the packs can't see rises in value. You can do well with them. What I'm saying is there's always going to be times where the booster boxes spike and the packs don't, because there's packs everywhere. You have collection boxes, tins, ETBs, 3-pack blisters, sleeve blisters, every other product under the sun, as well as the booster boxes that have packs in them, but there's only one booster box. And so that's why it is that way. Do you have anything to add to that?
I mean, the ETB itself, it's selling for around $45, which for an ETB being above MSRP, you see that still as a win. Because, I mean, let's think about it, right? If we talk about it, let's talk about this from a wholesale perspective, right? If you're talking about the price of what you were getting Fusion Strike booster boxes, you were getting them for roughly around $86 a pop, right? You're now seeing it be like 3 times that original price. You're typically looking at Fusion Strike ETBs. If we're talking about it in the same regard, the price of it usually was selling for around $23. It's at about 45 right now, so roughly around 2x. Obviously, as it currently stands right now, the price of the booster box itself is performing far greater than the ETB, but the ETB is still performing, and you might say, oh, well, it's not that far above MSRP, but if you've been following the price of the Fusion Strike Elite Trainer box, it has been sitting well below MSRP for the longest time. Like I'm talking about like $28 a pop. I mean, it's kind of same argument with, Fusion Strike when it was selling for sub 144. That was MSRP. You kind of just have to ignore MSRP pricing in this entire situation. So yeah, no, it's like there is some value in ETB because there is that collectability aspect with the, artwork with the Mew on the box itself. But as far as it stands right now, you can't really value it in the same regard because there is such a premium with the Fusion Strike booster boxes and more specifically the booster box packs.
Yeah, and like, Young Playmaker, he like thanked us and he was talking about like Hidden Fate ETBs and like Sun and Moon stuff. Like I always forget too that a lot of people weren't in the hobby back then. So guys, here's the thing is the reason you're going to see huge XY and Sun and Moon ETB prices is because one, it wasn't like a mainstream item. It was much shorter printed, and it was actually universally kind of accepted in this hobby that the reason Pokemon didn't reprint ETBs is because they didn't want to have to reprint all the things inside, the sleeves, the coins, the dividers, like they didn't want to have to do that. So that when they reprinted things, it was usually 3-pack blisters or like, booster boxes or other things like that. Whereas now in Sword and Shield, ETBs are like the most widely mass-produced thing. And so there's tons more of them out there. Whereas booster boxes are only printed for LGSs and people with distribution, where ETBs are printed for everyone and everywhere and big box stores and Amazon. And there's tons of them out there. So the reason you're going to see this discrepancies in XY and Sun and Moon compared to like Sword and Shield, Scarlet and Violet is because Pokemon shifted the products that they printed heavily. So don't get wrapped up in looking at XY ETBs and thinking, oh, I'm going to stock up on Sword and Shield because it's going to do a similar thing. Not saying you can't do well. I'm not saying you're not going to make money. What I'm saying is don't think you're going to have $500 ETBs. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, the best argument to make for the ETB values is going to be on a percentage base, not on a dollar value. So you could see it totally. I mean, we'll see what's going to happen the next 5 to 10 years, but you could totally see it have an insane price growth. But it's not going to reach the same as ETBs. You're going to have to look at the percentage growth because obviously it's such a lower valued product. Here's an interesting question from Wookie. So Wookie goes, Eli, what is the wholesale for 151 UPCs? My local shop has had them since December for 75 and not selling out at all.
Is that real? If that's real, dude, hit me up. Nostalgia
There's no way that's real. There's no way. If it is real, Wookie, you would be dumb not to buy every single one of them they have in stock, because I'm not even kidding you. Like the wholesale program that we run, we bought at least $50,000 plus of UPCs on the reprint wave for it. And that was selling for, it was as low as $65 to $68, if I'm correct, is what they were selling for at wholesale. I think it was 68. So like, it's not that far off from what the wholesale cost is. And you're looking at market price, I think it's like 120 right now. I mean, dude, 151 is such a high demand set right now. And so the fact that it's not moving, I don't know where you live, if it's BFE or wherever, but that just seems like a no-brainer play. You're going to have so many people hitting you up about like picking it up. Like, hey, if you're not going to pick it up for me, I'll buy it. Like, dude, that's an insane price point.
I mean, literally, with fees and shipping, you could just auction it or sell on eBay TCG player and make more than that.
Yeah, no, that's insane. That's crazy. There was another question I saw. What is the best Sun and Moon set in your opinion? Oh man, that's so easy for me. I know it's probably a lot harder for other people, but I'm biased, so
say it.
Cosmic for sure. Cosmic, 100%.
Agree.
Yeah, a lot of people might see Team Up because they're a huge fan of like the Gengar or like the Latios, which don't get me wrong, like they're incredible. But I'm a huge Gen 4 and Gen 5 fan, and you've got so much fan service for that in the set.
And the Team Ups, I mean, I'd put it number 2 for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you can. I feel like that's pretty easy to put at number 2. But yeah, I think not to mention too, it's really hard to compete with the subset. I mean, introducing the trainer gallery was so good. It was so good, especially when it first came out. I mean, one of my favorite cards of all time is the Arceus, Dialga, Palkia, alternate art like statue cards, especially being such a huge Gen 4 fan that I am. I love the Reshiram and Zekrom GX full art with Lord N in the front. I think that the full art and rainbow version of that card is extremely sick. Like, you've got you go on forever and ever, and that's just like within the main card set. Like that's not even talking about some of the subset with the trainers, where you start talking about like Pikachu secret rare with Red's Pikachu and how sick of a card that looks, or you start talking about Dawn's Piplup. Like Dawn is, if you guys don't know, an iconic character in Gen 4. So it's like stuff like that. I just love it. It's hard for me not to be biased and say I don't love the set for that reason.
And let's be honest, like if Team Up would have got like a good size reprint, it probably would be less to this day than Cosmic.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, there's no doubt. Scarcity played a huge factor. Question: how come if you guys are so blown away by that price, you guys aren't buying up just one a day on TikTok? It takes like 4 to 6 minutes from start to finish once a day to get the $65 to $75 UPC to the door.
Yeah, guys, here's the thing. Like, I am more power to everyone that likes to play the TikTok game. Like, I've explained it a couple times, but like, one, I'm not going to sit there and create 1 million accounts and do that and try to get all these different coupons. And I'm not going to have, a bunch of, just like individual UPCs all sent to me. I like to buy cases. Like, there's a bunch of different reasons. And here's the other thing. It's just like I can spend my time and energy doing other things to make money and not have to take advantage of like little things like that. Like, so look, if you're doing well with it, great. Like, I'm happy for you, but it's just like, I just don't think TikTok's for everyone and doing the TikTok game all day. And I don't think it's gonna last forever either.
Well, I think for me too, like having access to wholesale pricing, for me, I like to just play whatever opportunities I have available. And for me, usually what my kind of big plays are is I just wait until there's those massive plays that are like staring you right in the face. That's a no-brainer. And I just go heavy on it because I have the opportunity to do that. Like, obviously, I've used this example many times before. We talked about it last stream, but like Lost Storage and Boosters. I heard a reprint was coming out for that. I said, this is already a box that is seen upwards of almost hitting $200 at a box price. And so for me, it getting a reprint where I can now go buy it in the $90, it's a no-brainer for me to go double down on that. We've seen other instances of flash sales on our distributor pages where you've seen like more Pecco v Union boxes being sold at 50% off of wholesale pricing. So you're paying like $2.15 a Crown Zenith pack, like stupid stuff like that. Those are easy opportunities for me that I can easily do by just calling my rep and placing an order. When it comes to what like Alex was saying, it's just too much, effort for me. And if I'm being 100% honest, I'm not exactly the biggest fan of TikTok. Like I know there's a ton of money to be made with TikTok, and maybe one of these days I'll hire someone to definitely run a TikTok account for me. But I don't know. TikTok is definitely something that I've just never really utilized as a tool, even though I know there's a ton of opportunity to make money in buying with those TikTok coupons. But I just haven't.
I feel like it's just like a fleeting business model, though. Like I feel like eventually it's going to run out. Like eventually, they're already starting to up the fees. Like so, eventually, here's the thing, guys. Like there's a reason that eBay, TCG Player, these big sites charge fees, and the reason they stood the test of time, right? You have to be able to make a profit. Like, of course, TikTok's starting to make fees and everyone's unhappy. You have to make money doing all this stuff. It takes too much money and manpower to run all of that without charging for it. And so I just think eventually all that marketing budget they have is going to eventually dry up. They're not going to be able to offer all these crazy coupons. Eventually, there will be fees associated at a large amount where it almost makes sense just to buy anywhere else as well as TikTok. There'll be deals there from time to time, as there are deals everywhere. There'll be coupons from time to time. But I would be very cautious to like build your entire business model around TikTok, because there will be changes and eventually it could dry up.
Yeah. No, 1000%. I see more comments about TikTok and everyone's saying their opinions on it.
Guys, like, I mean, I don't know how else to put it. Like, just because like something isn't for one person, doesn't mean anything wrong with it. Doesn't mean it's not a good play and you're not making money. Like, do it. Like, congratulations. Like, I'm genuinely happy for you. Like, keep taking advantage of it every second that it's available. It's just, for a lot of people, it just isn't worth the time and effort. That's all. No big deal.
Well, and I've also said this as well. I am in a position now where getting a storefront set up, I am putting a lot of my liquidity into the storefront and getting the storefront set up. I mean, we're about $45,000 into the store at this point. And so for me, I'm having to just expend a lot of my capital into getting that set up. And for me, I took the play that I liked, which was the Lost Origin Silver Tempest reprint. I went extremely heavy into that. And then since that, I have used all of my liquidity on either selling singles, like I've discussed many times before, with how I'm a huge fan of breaking down commander decks for Magic the Gathering, selling that on TCG Player because there's just so much freaking money to be made in that. And I have card sorting machines that I utilize to maximize the profit with that. So it's just one of those things where that is the system that we have set in place, operated, and the structures around it to where I can make really quick profit doing it a lot easier. And I know it might seem like, oh, 4 to 6 minutes, it doesn't take that much time. But for me, like when it comes to how we have our business model set up, everything is like set up in a method of bulk selling as quickly as possible because every minute counts. And the more time like we take to go sell, like this might sound weird, but when it comes to selling sealed product on TCG Player, I lose more money than just the fees and the shipping because it takes way more time to like process orders on TCG Player and entering it into our system than what we have with our like automated shipping systems. And so for me, it's like I hate selling sealed product personally on TCG Player, but that's just because my time is so limited. And so having to like utilize it is really only if I'm like, okay, I have an item that I want to sell for like a huge, huge, huge profit. But it's like, it's different for some people and others. And for me, it's just not something that would work out because I've already got so much that I am doing as it is with my own business. And it kind of just takes more time for me, even if it sounds like it's not a lot. And like I said, I think ultimately going back to it, I'm just trying to stay off TikTok as much as I can.
I mean, guys, here's the thing. Like, let's be happy for everyone. Let's be happy for everyone who's, like I said, I've said it a million times, but anyone who's making money in this hobby that they enjoy, that are not doing anything illegal or scamming anyone or lying, cheating, stealing, faking cards, as long as you're making any money in a legitimate way, I'm happy for you. It's like, but let's not get mad at each other because we don't want to do, like, other people don't see things the way you do or want to make the same plays you do. I mean, me and Eli had, like hours of conversations about bulk. And like, I eventually decided, like, it's just not for me right now where I'm at, like with what I'm trying to do, maybe in the future. But like, Eli didn't get like mad at me. He's like, you're an idiot. You should be doing bulk. You're wasting your time. You could do this and that. It's just like, don't get mad at people because they don't want to do the things you do to make money in the hobby. That's crazy.
Yeah. And that's the great thing about this hobby. And I talk about this with people all the time is like, there's so many ways to like make money in this hobby. Just figure out what you like and what you enjoy the most and like grind at that, because you can make money flipping singles. You can make money with grading. You can make money with sealed product. You can make money with bulk. I mean, there is an endless amount of ways that you can really make money within this hobby. So just because, we like our bulk shipping operation with the automations that we have doesn't mean that someone else is going to like it, because everyone has different personality types too. Like, the people that tend to work in the bulk operation are the type of people that are like, yeah, I can totally see myself like sorting some bulk Pokemon product and shipping it while I like watch TV in the background or like listen to music or listen to a podcast. Like, you can easily do that. But if you're someone that's like, I need to be super social and I need to be like wheeling and dealing all the time, and being in a room where I'm just watching shows sounds so freaking painful to me. Like, it's different. Everyone's not the same in that regard. So I got some people.
Shaka Zulu, I know you were being rude. Thanks for bringing it up for anyone that does want to take the time to do that and is on TikTok. Obviously, go search UPCs. There's some deals to be had. So thanks for bringing it up to everyone's attention that is interested, because there's 145 people in here. I'm sure some people are interested.
Yeah, no, 1000%. Oh yeah, of course. Poke Collector J brings up a valid point, man. We are at 145 views with only 22 likes. Make sure to leave a like, comment down below, and subscribe, guys. Helps the algorithm. Yeah, shake that head, dude. Come on, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? But
Gotta leave that like. You know what? Even leave a dislike if you want.
yeah, dude, freaking. I mean, preferably not, but yeah, if you want to do that, you can, I guess. If you do it, if you do leave a dislike, though, you have to leave a mean comment saying how much you dislike Alex and think his opinions suck. That's the only way I'll ever allow. No, I'm just kidding. You gotta.
Tell you, after the first couple, it starts to sting. But like when you've had as many dislikes as me, you just kind of bask in it at this point.
You know, you're just the dislike machine, dude. You're just the dislike machine. You just have to accept it. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, I think we've talked about our like to dislike ratio off stream before. I mean, I think yours and I are actually pretty similar, which is kind of funny. It's just the persona everyone always thinks. I saw someone mention a comment about like Eli doesn't have a ton of Astral Radiance, which means it must be the play.
So by contrast, does that mean LO's kind of doomed since you do have a lot of it?
Dude, it's confirmed, man. Don't freaking get an LO. It's the worst pickup ever. If you had $1,000 to spend right now, what would you guys spend it on? I would buy 3 Steam Siege booster boxes.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, baby. Give me that Steam Siege. $1,000 right now? 1,000 smackaroonies?
I'd probably just, I mean, if you want to keep it really simple, just jump on and get a case of LO and Brilliant Stars on Pokemon Center. If you want to go more in depth, I'd probably be looking for Sword and Shield alt arts that are near mint, that are gradable as 10s, and maybe try to make that play, because I think both of those are going to, have good short-term plays there. So probably something like that.
Man, it's hard. Because for me, like, there are opportunities for sure to put your money in some places. But I feel like for me, this is how my like thought process is behind buying and selling. And once we get closer to August, September, you'll definitely hear me nonstop talk about it. The best times to buy are during the holiday season, and the best times to sell is like end of spring going into summer. So for me, it's like, sure, I'll answer the question, but just kind of like as a preface for this, I think that ultimately, if you are wanting to like buy product, we should always talk about too when the best times to buy are, because
well, I mean, keeping it in the bank and wait until later, and building up more money, that's an answer.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at with this, is like, yeah, I think it's a fantastic opportunity for you to still pick up Evolving Skies and Brilliant for really cheap. Like, I'm totally not going to fault you for that. Like, we've talked about it before on the past couple of streams, how like in comparison, like it's still a really good opportunity. We could easily see Lost Origin hit over $200 in the next couple of months. So I would honestly kind of agree with what Alex is saying. I think you could probably find it cheaper elsewhere if you want to spend more time outside of Pokemon Center and go to like some Facebook Marketplace groups for like LO and Brilliant. But yeah, no, for me, it's like,
I don't know about these days, man.
You don't know about these days? There's some freaking Pokemon Center, dude. There's like multiple groups that I'm in, but I know there's one in particular that Safari Zone puts out, and man, they are just all about flash selling everything. People in that group are like, whoo, they want the lowest of the low when it comes to product price. So I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. You could probably still find it, but yeah, no, I think always keeping that in mind, because there's always the market cycles, and then there's always going to be the cycles in which the Pokemon company loves to come out and do reprints. Sometimes it happens in May where you'll have that like easy pickup with the Brilliant and Astral reprint. But for the most part, most of the big like in your face plays aren't going to happen until the holiday season. So it's usually a good time to like save a lot of your money when it comes to long-term investments, unless you're wanting to just kind of ride some short-term, hold on for like 6 months, wait till it's the holiday season, and then kind of go heavy on when a big play happens. Because who knows, man, we could see another 151 reprint. We could see some massive set come out near the end of the year that everyone's going to love. I mean, there's so much that is going to go into it. Or the $75. Yeah, there you go.
No. The Shaka Zulu said, what about the Japanese 151 reprint? It's supposed to come in.
Oh, thank you. That's a good one. That's a fantastic one. That's a fantastic answer. Actually, I'm really glad you brought that up because I didn't want that one to slip my mind. Yeah, that's one of those in your face plays that it's massive. I mean, we've already seen 151 and the price of what it's gone up to with Japanese. So when this reprint does come in May and we're gonna see prices probably correct pretty heavily, I definitely think that's where all your $1,000 should go. Not financial advice, not a financial advisor, but it's just, I don't know, man. Like, I'm a sucker for when I can see that a set has extremely high demand that's authentic, and you've seen it happen before where it like went up to $200 and then it gets a reprint. All that's happening is there's more supply. It doesn't mean the demand has dropped off. Like, it's one thing if demand for a product goes down, it's another if there's more supply of a product that's high demand, because it's deflationary. So it's going to go up again in value. So it's, for me, I just like products that are high demand, that have a abundance of supply, that we know that once that kind of supply dries up, it's just a volatility like funnel. Like, it's just like,
Yeah. Let's see. Posedo said, Alex, do you flip a lot of graded cards or holding most for Sword and Shield alt arts? So, yeah, I flip graded cards, as part of my business. And yes, I flipped a lot of alt arts. Recently, I've pulled pretty much all my alt arts and my trainer gallery PSA 10s from the market, and I've been holding them because I just see a huge increase coming. It already has been coming, but I've talked about it in other videos. I just see it coming as these sets get a lot more scarce, as the boxes continue to rise. I see a lot of these cards starting to rise as well. And so I'm holding on to a good amount of them right now. There will come a time when I do sell, because I've talked about that before too, is I'm much more a fan of holding sealed product like long-term. With singles, I usually make more shorter-term plays, where short-term could mean anything. It could mean a few months. It could mean 6 months, a year and a half. Like, short-term could be a lot of different things, but there'll be a time where I sell the alt arts and things. I just think right now we're in a growth cycle, and I don't want to sell into a growth cycle, if that makes sense.
My favorite plays are 1 year plays.
1 year.
1 year. I mean, it's so easy to make 1 year plays, or like even 2 year plays at the longest. Cause for me, it's like holiday season, reprint, price correction on a high demand item. You go pick up that high demand item. You go into the spring, into the summer, price goes up. You can either sell it there or sell off a portion of it there, or you can wait another year in the following summer, following spring, and just do the exact same thing. That's literally what we've seen happen with Sword Shield era, Sun and Moon era. It's just history repeating itself over and over. And so that's kind of where, for me, it's like, hey, man, I wait till holiday, I double down holiday season, and then just kind of slowly sell off my position, and then double down into other positions that may occur during either the holiday season, or if there are big plays that happen in the spring, such as like this 151 or the Brilliant Stars reprint. So that's just kind of it. Cause there's so many times, like you don't have to be constantly buying and selling all the time. Like, you don't have to constantly be like putting your money into positions. It's not like, oh my God, Lost Origin Silver Tempest reprint is passed. What's the next thing for me to get into? I have to put my money somewhere. Like, you can always wait. Like, it's not like it's your money. Like, I understand inflation is obviously something people are very skeptical of. Like, they're not skeptical about. They're always scared. Like, oh my God, my money's losing value, which I can understand, like, to a certain extent, but like,
it's so overblown though. Like, that is
yeah, it's overblown to a certain extent. This isn't COVID, guys. We're not seeing a huge amount of money just being, shot into the economy. Like, it's
like guys, if you have 10K in your bank account, like 10K next April, it's going to be relatively close to what it's worth now. Like, it's not like, oh, next year I can only afford half of what I could last year. It's not how it works. And it's like, we made the example, I think maybe a week ago, I think we did, about like Fusion Strike. Like, guys, Fusion Strike, if you would have just put money into that a couple of years ago and held it, I mean, you would have made so much money, like a lot more than if you would have like trying to find plays every so often. It's like what Eli's saying is so true. It's like, don't think you every second of every day have to have all your money 100% leverage to work. Every single time you buy something, you have to buy something else. You have to constantly be looking for every play after every play. It's like, sometimes the best thing to do is wait and sit on cash and wait for things like a 151 reprint or make plays like where Lost Origins is about to go out of stock, or like make the right plays to where they're more strategic and less about like volume and more about just like making more strategic plays. So that's I think it's a great point.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times, like over trading or over investing in positions because you feel like you have to constantly do it, it's actually going to be to your detriment. I mean, unlike stocks, this is a market which is not nearly as liquid. So it's one of these things where if you have a position that you just want to get into because you have to always be making positional plays where you're putting money into something, and all of a sudden like that position is like going bust or sideways, or you need more liquidity because that in your face opportunity is available and you want to put more than you have into it, you're going to have to take a loss by selling that product and eating the fees and the shipping because you decided to go in on something which it's not a bad play by any means, but it's ultimately not going to be a play that's just a straight up instant like free tendy, and instead you're liquidity locking yourself. So being patient is a huge virtue, and obviously taking advantage of those opportunities when they do come, and not always taking your money and immediately putting it into product at all times.
And I think it really also has to do with what you are in the hobby. Are you full time? Like if you're a full time reseller and you have to make a living, that's different. If you have a job where your bills are being paid and this is like secondary, I mean, you could see tons of examples on the stock market, especially like these last couple of years. Go look at some of the stocks like, Nvidia, AMD, like Tesla, like, a lot of those stocks that hit enormous rises. You could go ask a day trader, right? Someone who's literally just trading in and out of stocks all day, every day, whether it's options, day trading, futures, whatever. And you could ask them, like the majority, a lot of them lose money, but ask them the ones that are successful, how much did you make this year? And then you could ask an investor, well, how much profit did you make on Nvidia this year, right? Doing nothing. They bought it and they held and they put their feet up every day and played golf every day and then checked back in a year and said, oh, I made more than all those people day trading and working all day every single day. And that's the same kind of thing in Pokemon, where if you don't need to like constantly churn and burn and make a living from it, you can make strategic plays to actually outpace people who are constantly always trying to churn and burn and this and that, just by letting your money work for you.
Yeah, and I mean, going back to the point of what is your kind of position in the hobby, because we talk about this a ton, right? I am always talking when it comes to my own position and my own plays, a lot of times from the perspective of like a business owner and a reseller. Because at the end of the day, you could easily go buy Lost Origin. Let's say you picked it up on the reprint and you were buying it for like, let's say 120, right? And it's now selling for 180. Let's say there's no shipping and fees, right? Just to make it simple, right? Sure, you made 50% right there within the span of the reprint, which was about an 8-month period. So that's a great return after an 8-month period. But hypothetically speaking, let's say that you are now a business owner that is taking that money and you're flipping product every month and you're doing 10% month over month. Obviously, 10% doesn't seem like a lot, but compound that over an 8-month period. Yes, you're outperforming, but ultimately at the end of the day, you're putting way more work into it. So having to understand like, hey, where's my kind of position? Am I doing this as like a kind of like a side hustle, or doing this as a side hobby where I just want to take money, put it away because I want to perform as best as possible compared to the stock market? Or am I someone that likes the hustle of flipping product and the grind? Because you're going to take completely different approaches with both. You can still take advantage within, sitting on sale product off to the side. Like I said before, man, I mean, I made the LO play because it was a play that was right in front of me. But when I'm not making those LO plays, you best be believing I'm constantly looking at other product where I can make margins and consistently like just flipping, turning, whether it be singles or seal product.
Yeah, and like everyone who's trying to do this full time, it has to do that. It's honestly, it's like we're kind of, all the channels like us are almost bad for people that are trying to invest, because like it's almost like watching CNBC all day and like having your stock portfolio up every single day. You're constantly like, oh, I should probably buy, I should probably sell this, and it's like it's the same thing with all our channels. It's like you constantly are fed all these different plays, all these different things to do. You're seeing these charts go up and these go down, and it's got your mind going everywhere. Where it's like in the end, if like you just bought something and let it sit there, you probably would have did as good, even if not as good as someone who's constantly flipping, you probably would have did relatively good compared to the amount of work you put in. And so, yeah, to Eli's point again, just if you're trying to, if you don't do this full time, don't overtrade yourself. If you believe in a play, you got a good entry point, it has a good future, like just trust yourself more in your plays and don't get scared out of them.
Yeah, no, 1000%. So we've been going for about an hour and 15. Do you want to have one or two more questions before we wrap things up here? I have a crap ton of stuff I need to do, so we're gonna have to cut it a little bit on the shorter end. Just for those of you guys that don't know, today we're in the process of getting everything set up for the shop to finally get product shipped to it. So it's really exciting. We're at the finish line for the storefront, so we're getting really close. The big thing is just signage is really what we need to get taken care of. So we're gonna also be launching the new UI for the website sometime this week. So I'm excited for that when we do the grand reveal. So it's a lot going on, but I'm excited. I'll obviously be talking about that more, and I'll be posting videos again too once we get everything all situated. But let's see if there's any other questions we have before we kind of finish things off here. Is there one that kind of pops off at you first and foremost that you see?
I mean, Joseph just left one. This is the second comment up. You think One Piece has a big impact on Pokemon right now?
No, I don't think it is.
I mean, guys, obviously, like every TCG has some effect. Like Lorcana, One Piece, like any of the new ones popping up, like they're taking TCG market share from Pokemon or whatever. But I don't. My personal thoughts, I don't think people that are like wanting to collect a Pokemon card or get a box are putting the money into One Piece over Pokemon. I mean, I think there's people definitely investing in both. I think there's people definitely speculating on both. But I think like the overall broad perspective of collectors I don't think the collectors of Pokemon are collecting One Piece over Pokemon.
Yeah, no, I agree. Here's one last one I think is a good one to touch on, and we'll wrap up with this one. Do you think PC ETBs are still worth as a long-term play for good sets only? Maybe.
I mean, here's the thing. Technically, they're outperforming Scarlet Violet boxes right now. I mean, right? Because they're selling for over what you could buy them at on Pokemon Center, and Scarlet Violet boxes are basically at or under market price. They're kind of sitting there. I mean, you could argue Paldea's maybe a little up, or you're up a little bit on Obsidian Flames, but I mean, the 151 PC ETB, it's double the price. Like bundles, ETBs, UPCs, they're not double the price. So, I mean, judging from what's going on right now, I would say they're still a pretty good pickup.
Short-term play, no, but since you asked long-term play, yeah, I think it's not a bad pickup. But also, I guess it's what's long-term, right? In my mind, I'm thinking 5 to 10 years. So, because ultimately, like for me, I feel like Pokemon Center ETBs are one of those things where we don't know when they're going to go out of stock, but when they do go out of stock, you're going to want a piece. And so I'm almost willing to like pick up a Brilliant Star ETB at like $65 more than 50, knowing that it's out of stock and that's the price I'm picking it up for.
Hey, you gotta take Poke Collector Jay's question though.
Oh God, I have to. Oh my God. Eli, any good credit card points updates? Oh God, am I about to flex on a bunch of people? Is that what's about to happen? Is everyone
let's
about
hear
to
it.
hear this? Okay,
Let's
fine.
hear it.
Okay, fine. If you guys weren't here for last stream, I went a little geeky because I'm huge into credit card points and stuff. Okay, so do you know what Emirates Airlines is? Do you know Emirates Airlines at all?
I mean, guess what? Like the United Arab Emirates Airlines?
Yeah. So like they're known as like having one of the best business class products ever. And more specifically, they have one called the A380. And so that one has like a literal lounge within the sky. And you can access it if you're in business or first class, right? So like their business class tickets will be anywhere between like $4,000 to $6,000, depending upon what year or what time of year you're going. So, they were doing like a last second like flash sale special on it, where they were selling off like for redemption value on the price per ticket using points for like 50% off. And I literally booked a trip for my wife and I from JFK to Italy next year in March. in their business class product, and we're going to be flying in the A380. So it cost me 108,000 points round trip for each one of us, and I looked at the cash value, and it'd usually be 4,500. So we saved like a crap ton of money and got like more than 4 cents per value in points and had it all paid for with points. So since we're talking about pretty good redemptions, like I'll freaking talk about it, man. Like I'll talk about that cents per point value, baby. Like, yeah, I'm really big in that stuff. And like Emirates Airlines, specifically like the A380 with business class, it's like one of those like always wanted to try out type things. Like it's kind of like bucket list type thing. So I'm excited to do it and then go to Europe for the first time and fly to Italy. It'll be a really cool experience. So yeah, I mean, people keep asking me to talk more about the credit card stuff. So, I mean, I'll talk about it at some point more. So I don't want to get too derailed, but yeah, there's so much value that you can really make off of it when it comes to,
But James wants to know what Dave Ramsey thinks of this flex, dude.
You know what Dave Ramsey can go do? He can as someone that started listening to Dave Ramsey when I was 11, I am like someone. Oh yeah, dude. I had my first personal finance class when I was 11. I loved listening to Dave Ramsey, and if I'm being 100% honest, he's gotten really out of touch. Like really out of touch. A lot of his principles and how he discusses like people affording homes, it like I think he's still incredible at like crushing debt. Like that's something he's still really good at. And if you're someone that like struggles financially when it comes to like managing your debt and like how to overcome it, he's still really good. But like in terms of buying a home and the advice he gives for that, he's giving the advice as if homes were still $100,000 on average in the US. And it's like, yeah, of course, you can totally have enough money to get a down payment on a home in like 2 to 3 years. And you're just like, what are you smoking? Like more like freaking 5 to 10 years. Like, holy crap, man. Like, yeah, there's a lot of pieces of advice that I would say of his are definitely outdated. And like his disdain for credit cards has less to do with like, oh, I just hate credit cards. I feel like it has more to do with his branding. Like his branding is so against debt, and most of the people that like follow him that are like not good with borrowed money would be terrible owning credit cards. And so it's trying to push away a certain type of demographic from credit cards because they're not the type of people that should be owning credit cards.
Yeah, I mean, I've had credit cards since I was 18. I've never paid a dime of interest in my entire life. You know, it's like I've used multiple 0% interest credit cards to, you know, when I had my lawn care business to like, you know, buy equipment that I had paid off in a few months because I never paid a dime of interest. Like there's definitely ways to use them. I think his whole deal is, and it's what people who like, you know, like your points are perfect, but I think his whole deal is like, and what he gets criticized a lot on is people talking about like using leverage to do things, and they never want to talk about the risk. So I think that's one thing he does good is like, you can't quantify risk. And so when you're not in any kind of personal debt, you don't have any risk to where it's like, well, yeah, you could leverage and buy rental properties, or you could leverage and do this and that, but it's like, there's always risk. And I think a lot of the people that kind of got, you know, a lot of notoriety, especially in the last like 10 years, talking about like real estate, using leverage for that or whatever it may be. It's like, I think a lot of people got really hurt, especially with Airbnbs and other things, because they didn't fully understand like how dangerous leverage can be. So, you know, there's goods and bads for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's why when you listen to him, like he talks about mutual funds and index funds. Like that's what he talks about a ton because he likes that like safe play of getting your average, you know, depending upon his picks, obviously, because he's always going to recommend like 4 to 7% year over year. Like you're going to make your safe money and you'll be a millionaire when you're in your 60s. Like,
and you will.
Yeah, it'll work. Like it'll 100% work, right? And really I feel like a lot of his principles that he talks about is more about like financial discipline more than anything, like trying to make sure that you have like goals in mind, rules for yourself, and making sure that you're going to be financially prudent, because it's really easy for a lot of people to get like ahead of themselves. Like the amount of times I've heard people ask questions of like, hey, I want this really fancy car, can I afford it? And then he asks like, what are you making? What's your debt situation? What's your XYZ? And it's like good questions to really ask, because there's so many people that'll like go in wanting a fancy car, but then not realize like, yeah, cars, they're kind of like a depreciating liability. Like you should not be dumping a ton of money into buying a nice fancy car that you want with $1,000 a month as a monthly payment when your rent is like $2,000. Like that's crazy money. And some people will do that because I listen to his calls all the time.
Yeah.
And I send a lot of his videos to my buddies who need help with managing their
The,
own.
the best thing he ever says is when he talks about like the people who retire millionaires or whatever. It's just like, one thing they all had in common. It's not about like how much they made. It's just they continue to put into their investments every month, like clockwork. And it's like all it takes. It's like everyone's got all these theories and like, oh, this would be better than that, or I could use here, I could do this. It's like, okay, then just do it then. Just do something with your money besides blow it, and you're probably gonna be okay.
Yeah, no, 1,000%. Someone made a point. Majority of people don't budget. That's so true. No, that's 1,000% true. I remember I learned about it in my finance class that I took in high school, where they said the average American, this was back in like 2017, so who knows if it's changed. They said the average age Americans, or no, they said the average, the average age an American puts $1,000 in for the first time in like an actual like savings account and opens one is like 40 years old. That was one of the statistics that we learned about in class. I think it's gone down at this point to like 36 years old, but it was one of those things that like shocked me. And like since then they've like started showing charts of like the average like net worth of each individual at certain ages and how much money they've put aside. And I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole because I got to like wrap it up here. There's a large misconception when it comes to Social Security. And a lot of people have this expectation that it's going to be your retirement. And it's like really, really scary because so many people don't realize like, hey, you should probably be saving money off to the side. But everyone always anticipates that they're going to have like this huge Social Security fund at the end of their life that they're going to be able to draw from. But it's scary. So, but who knows, that I'm hoping the averages have changed, especially too, because I mean, when COVID happened and everyone started to get a crap ton of money in the stimulus checks, you'd like to believe some people at least set that money off to the side. But
there's no right answers, guys. Like it's like someone asked, like I think Jimbo or someone asked, would you use like a Pooping Turtle said, would you ever use a credit card or personal loan outside of 0% APR stuff to buy a ton of stuff to flip? Like I personally wouldn't, but it doesn't mean you couldn't be successful at that. It's kind of like, with rental properties, would you, load up on a bunch of rental properties, continuously have, like for me, I'm I guess part of my life now where I just want I want stress-free, risk-free living to where I'm not like, things aren't on my mind. I'm not stressed out. I'm not worried about things. And so I want as little leverage as possible on things like that. But other people, it could be it could be like a leg up on the competition. You could take these more risky routes and you could, pass other people and grow your business or grow your funds faster because you took those risks. Just understand, anytime you're taking on risk, there is always, that chance of losing money. It just is what it is.
Yeah. I think it's also so completely different compared to like where you are and like how much generated revenue you have expendable. Because ultimately at the end of the day, right, if hypothetically speaking, you go in and like you buy, let's not even say like a product to flip, but like you buy a specific item that is going to help. Like, okay, I'll give a perfect example, right? My Roka, my card machine, right? That cost me $25,000. If you wanted to rent the Roka or lease it, they have an option where you can lease to buy. You'll pay $1,200 a month, and after 6 months, or if you want to during the time, you have an option to buy out. However, when it comes to the lease terms, only 50% of it counts towards the actual principal balance. So for me, I said to myself about 3-4 months in, okay, I like the machine. I don't want to keep leasing it because I feel like I'm throwing away $600 a month. Rather than do that, let me go get a 0% APY credit card for 12 months. I will put the $25,000 on that business credit card, and then I will just make the payments spread out between a 12-month period. If I was already going to be spending $1,200, I might as well spend a couple hundred extra bucks above that. And then I'm basically saving myself a ton of money because I'm putting that money now towards the actual principal itself and not a lot of it being just kind of thrown into the void. So like that's an example that I more or less gave. So instead of leasing it, I bought it and then made payments as if I was because here's I'll break
Was
down
there
the math
was
for
there
you.
was there interest though?
With the 0% APY.
So but he was asking like, would you take on anything that had interest attached to it?
Oh, no, never, 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 never,
Okay,
never,
okay.
never. I mean, I know that there are some people that can do that with businesses, but like 7 to 8% sounds brutal. Like it sounds so brutal. Like you can easily like outpace it if you have the outlets to do the 7 to 8%, but the pressure of having to constantly outpace at 7 to 8% is something that I don't like to have to deal with. And I can easily rotate between 0% APY credit cards. Like that's so easy for me. And ultimately, like this is a risky tactic for some people, but also, like I said before, you have to look at the situation itself. I already was in a position to pay $1,200 a month for this machine, right? And how it worked was it's $25,000. You had a $5,000 deposit, right? So $20,000 is what I put on the credit card. You divide that by 12, that's $1,664. So in my mind, I'm like, all right, I'm already paying 1,200. I'm paying an extra $460 a month, and I'm saving $600 each month by not leasing it. It just made like a huge, like it basically in my mind, I was making it $150 extra by going that route than not leasing it, and like saved money that would have gone into the void. So that's at least how I looked at it from that perspective. And I was already in the position from a capital perspective to make that investment, especially knowing that this was going to maximize efficiency and save us a ton on the back end when it comes to labor. So
Do you think I've been talking too much this stream?
I love these lives. Alice does a lot of talking, and Eli says yes, 100%. Dude, that's crazy. I feel like I'm the one that talks so much more than you. I always get self conscious, like fuck, I'm talking way. Oh, I just swore. I
I
always
think it's
feel like
pretty good.
I feel like I always talk so much, bro. I always feel like I'm so self conscious. Like crap, I talk so much, dude. I feel like I need to shut up for a second so Alex can go on for a little bit because I do feel like I talk a ton. So I feel like it's pretty balanced when if he thinks that, then
Yeah, it must be. That's crazy. That's funny. I'll do better. I'll do better in the future, Corey.
yeah, no, definitely. I wouldn't look into that.
But no, like even on the investing side though, it's like, man, I'd be much more stressed out if I knew every single month I had a credit card bill due, with an interest attached to it, holding all the product I do. Like every month I'd be like, wow, so my product didn't move again. Now I'm 8% back. Like this is really gonna start pumping quickly, or like there's no way to really get ahead of this. So it's like, credit, if you're in interest, it can eat away your gains so fast, because especially with no matter what you're paying in interest, every single month your gains are being eaten away by it. And you basically, if it takes too long for your investments to move, you're going to get too far behind to really, even be able to profit, even if they do move. And so not financial advice, but myself, I would never own anything on, especially investments on leverage.
Well, in what's even scarier to think about than that, right, is like this is an investment that you're talking about in your example you gave. So you're not only going to have to outpace the rate of return when you are talking about the interest, but also as well, you also are going to have to outpace the rate of return minus the fees and shipping. Even if you had a 0% APY, you're making a massive bet. If let's say you got like a $20,000 line of credit, you max out the credit card, you make the minimum payments every month. As long as you're smart and you're able to make those minimum payments with that 0% APY, it's not going to kill you in that position. But if hypothetically speaking, let's say that you didn't have the money to make any sort of payments towards that original credit line that you took at the 0% APY, and you're like, I'm just going to sell all my product after a year. If you're wrong, you're going to eat so much. So you have to be in a position where you're like saying to yourself, like, oh, I know I am in a financial situation where I can make the 12-month payments divided by however much your credit line is, just to make it seem as if I was already going to put my money towards this, and I might as well do it over a 12-month period, because obviously money now is more valuable than money in the future. But you have to make sure you're in that financial situation where you can afford that, because otherwise, like, you're so screwed because you're over leveraging your position. And so like I said, with my example I gave, I was already making payments of $1,200 a month. The difference was an extra $460 for me, which was nothing, especially considering it was saving me so much money in labor cost. It was saving me so much time in overall efficiency metrics. It was generating much higher rates of sales. And that was something that obviously allowed me to then make up the difference on top of the fact that I didn't have to put money into the void with the leasing. So you have to always break it down and justify it yourself and then see what your general, situation looks like.
And now he's saying like he's kind of maxed out his opportunities with the 0% card. So in terms of like flipping, would you do it? Like, man, it's just dangerous. Like I'm not saying like, again, it's not financial advice. You do what you want. It's just dangerous because Pokemon margins are usually small, especially if you're shipping and fees. I mean, even if you're getting good deals, you're making good grades or good flips, like and you can get higher values. It's like every single month, that turns over whatever the interest rate of that credit card is. Well, credit card interest rate, you're talking a regular credit card, you're got to be in the teens at least. So you're talking like something teen percent every month that you don't pay it all off. So it's like you're going to have to be making a lot of money off those flips if you're not rinsing, repeating them every single month and paying your bill every single month. But I mean, can you do it? Of course you can. Like people do it. People take crazy risks and they do work out. As like a long-term method, I personally wouldn't go that route. It seems too risky to me, especially if the market shifts down or one of those plays don't pan out or whatever it may be. Your customer returns the products. Now you got to resell it. By then your credit card bills due. There's just so many things that can come up, man. It's just dangerous.
Yeah. And another point someone brought up as well is like, they're like, but then in 6 months, something in life happens, Eli, and paying it off in 12 months doesn't make it happen. And that's the thing is like when I am making the decisions I'm making, I'm always taking that mindset. Always. I'm saying, because like a perfect example, right, is I my goal in life is to eventually own a home, right? I'm constantly thinking if I buy a home based off of not my current salary that I'm making or my current amount of money I'm generating, but if I were to make 50%, 75% of that right now, how would that put me financially? Like what position would I be in? Because for me, I constantly have to be taking an extremely like low risk position based off of the available like assets I have or generated income that I'm creating, right? Because it's one of those things where if you're, let's say, going to get a mortgage, and just to make it simple, right? Let's say you're making like $6,000 is how much you're making a month, and your mortgage is $2,000. If hypothetically speaking, something were to happen and you lose 50% of your income, you're obviously still making $1,000 more. And, there's going to be more life expenses outside of your mortgage. But I guess the point that I'm making is like trying to figure out those calculations is something that's important to me. Now, I know maybe people might not like the example because obviously mortgage percentages nowadays are higher than ever compared to general, income. But I guess in the point that I'm more or less trying to make with this is kind of like the calculations I'm doing when I'm saying to myself, can I afford this $1,600 a month right now for the next 12 months? Do I think that if something were to happen where I lose 50% of my income, I will be able to afford this $1,600 a month, especially knowing that it's also helping me generate additional revenue in this process, which then in turn allows me to pay it off faster. So, these are risks that you're constantly having to always consider and take into consider, or yeah, you're just always considering these things.
I like it.
But yeah, we've been going for an hour and 37 minutes. I said let's wrap it up 22 minutes ago, so I hate to say it, but I gotta go. We can definitely talk about this more though on the next live, because I mean a lot of people have questions about it. Like, and I guess the one thing I'll finish with, I don't know if you want to kind of finish with anything yourself, but like when it comes to like risk taking, especially as someone who is a business owner, yes, I believe in taking risks, but also at the same time, I think that calculating your risk and being able to understand like the consequences that come with that risk taking and being able to find ways to constantly give yourself an edge so that the position you're putting yourself in isn't more risk than you can truly take or handle. I think that's one of the most important things is risk management. And so for me, like at the end of the day, I'm not advising people go to the route in which I go, but at the end of the day, I am fully open about the positions I've taken and the routes that I've gone in my own business and how it's helped me out because of, you know, the route I took with the Roca and the 12% or the 12-month 0%. And it helped me get the machine, helped me make the payments, and has since then helped me make a ton of money because of it. So it's just, it is what it is. Just make sure that you're always calculating your risk because everyone's position and everyone's situation is going to be different. I could be making more or less than other people that are wanting to take these risks in different areas of the market or within the same facet, right? Trying to sell bulk versus trying to flip sealed, completely different situation. So always taking factors into consideration is important.
And I'll say, I would always take risk with money you've made over money you haven't made, right? And so, you know, taking risk with money you've already made, or taking risk because you have, you know, X amount of sealed product, X amount of investment or inventory you already have. So that way, you know, hey, I've already built this up, or I've worked a job, I've saved up 10K, I've got 10K in inventory. Okay, if you want to take a 10K risk on some leverage or whatever, and it doesn't work out, well, then you sell your inventory, or you empty your savings account, you pay it off, you're back at square one. But at least you're not in debt. At least you don't have a hole to climb out of. So, like, for me, I've taken a lot of risks in my life too, but it's always been with money that I've had, right? Like, so like I either have it in investments or I have it in cash. Like, it's money I have, and I'll take a risk with that money. I'll make some really risky and really volatile plays. But at least I'm not playing with money that isn't even mine. So like that's what I would say.
Yeah, no, 1000%. But all right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys all so much for stopping by. I think we had another good stream. Make sure, as always, leave a like, comment down below, subscribe. Really helps out the algorithm. And then if you're interested in joining the wholesale program, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you check us out. Link is down in the description below. Or if you have any questions, feel free to message me on Discord. Links down below for that. And I will help answer all your questions or help get you in the program. But that is all for today's video. Hope you guys all have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday. Peace.